Somewhere on Earth is off to Sri Lanka, the sacred island in Singhalese. It lies off the coast of India like a tear in the vast Indian Ocean. Its rich land and location have made it a coveted prize. After several centuries of European presence and internal conflicts, the island has now recovered its serene splendor. Shina is a student in gemology. Fascinated by precious stones, she's undertaking a journey to the heart of her land, to the origins of sapphires and rubies. She's off to meet the miners who toil in the depths of the earth. Jerome has flown with his balloon over the four corners of the globe. Childhood dream that now comes true in the early morning mists of Sri Lanka. Each flight is a release from earthly constraints. Jerome and his balloon drift with the wind to discover the wonders and people of this country. Dhammadasi is a monk. A keeper of age-old wisdom, he writes the words of Buddha on an ancestor of paper. His spiritual quest has led him to the summit of Sri Pada, the sacred mountain, a pilgrimage site for Buddhists as well as for other believers.
My entire life is based on the principles of Buddhism. I have no other ambition. I'm content with what I have. I've had the good fortune and strength to be able to teach, to spread the word of Buddha to many of the faithful. That's the goal I've set for myself.
Shina is barely 20 years old. The journey she's setting out on will be like an initiation rite. Gemstones are one of Sri Lanka's greatest riches, and for Shina, they are a family affair as well. She grew up among uncles and brothers, all gem dealers.
I'm a student of gemology. So now I want to learn more about gems, so that's why I'm traveling by bus to Ratnapura. Now I'm on the way to Ratnapura, so I hope to see some mines and rivers, and I hope to buy a gem from mine. So.
Ratnapura means the city of gems in Singhalese. The region has always attracted adventurers dreaming of riches. The route Shina is following has carried countless famous stones out of the region and even across the seas, like the famous 104-carat Stuart sapphire, which after several centuries and numerous owners now belongs to the Crown of England. Ajit was born in this region. He's a gem miner, a risky job. Every morning he prays to Buddha to protect him while he's down at the bottom of the mine. The mine, a strange world unto its own, where reality seems distorted. In the almost total darkness, fear grips the belly. The heat, the humidity, these men sweat and toil, forcing the earth to give up its precious treasure. Ajit is the first to arrive at the mine, when the water-soaked rice fields are still shrouded in mist. First a fire, then a cup of tea to brace his nerves. During the night, the mine fills up with water. Every day, it's the same routine. Ajit has to start the pump to empty it out.
There are streams and springs all around the mine. It's a very marshy region. We're in the middle of a rice field right here. Plus, there's a whole network of abandoned galleries filled with water right nearby. That makes a huge store of water that seeps into our mine from all sides.
It's Shina's passion for gemstones that has drawn her here to the source of those stones. The blue sapphires, rubies, and moonstones, legendary names that inhabited the tales of her childhood.
It's an adventure to travel by through-wheel, tuk-tuk. But it's good experience. I think this is the good way to discover about my project. So now I'm in a remote area. So I can't go by car or another vehicle because the road is so thin. Only the three-wheel can travel in this road.
For more than 2,500 years, the gems of Sri Lanka have been woven into its very history. This region is home to hundreds of cottage industry mines. The galleries are dug in this damp terrain where rice is grown on the surface, and below, men grope through the mud for the key to their fortune.
What's the matter?
A bolt has come loose. I have to fix it. Hand me the wrench, please. It's a good solid machine. It may be a little rusty, but even so, it can carry heavy loads. There's no problem. They break down sometimes, but you can fix them quickly. Only 3 wheels, but you can count on them. They go anywhere. There's no problem. If it breaks down, we patch it up quick, and then we're off again.
Shina's family has been dealing with Ajit for a long time. They encouraged her to come see him so that he could introduce her to this fascinating yet oppressive realm.
So this is where you work?
That's right.
How do you get down?
You see, there's a ladder here. You grab onto it and climb down nice and slow.
How deep do you go?
About 8 meters.
And tell me, what's a typical day like here?
We get to the site around 5:30, and we start the pump to empty the water that fills up the mine during the night. By 8:30, it's ready.
වතුර එළියට යන්න.
While the pumping is going on, we prepare the beams to shore up the galleries. We cut them here, right nearby. When it's all ready, we let the water pump keep running and we start the air pump. Would you like to go down and visit the bottom of the mine?
I don't know. I'm a little scared.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Isn't it slippery?
A little, but it's okay.
You don't sink down into the mud too much?
No, no.
Spurred by hope, these men descend into the mine every day, again and again. They have to plunge into this other world that holds the promise of a discovery, a stone that could make all these men rich. And then, lit by no more than candles, they penetrate deep into the galleries, far from the surface and the world of the living.
All these beams here could collapse. And then you have to get out quickly. If the beams crack, we'll all be crushed. It's not very solid, and it's holding up all this heavy, heavy mud. It has collapsed before. Down here, it's a constant war between life, death, and the earth.
At the end of the gallery, the air is thin, the humidity at its maximum. And yet, that's where they have to work, to dig the vein with their bare hands, for the gems might be so close, right there hidden away in the mud. They caulk the walls with ferns, but that doesn't keep the water from flowing in. As for the stonecutter, he has to be careful and precise at every stage of his work. He knows very well that the slightest error could mar the gem and prevent it from fully reflecting the light it contains. Even worse, it could crack. His craft is comparable to sculpture. Starting with a rough, shapeless mass, he applies his skill to coaxing forth all the stone's seductive and hypnotic beauty.
This stone isn't worth much, but we found it in the vein. It's often right next to a precious stone. This is the kind of rock you'd use for decorating your garden, but we don't bother to bring them up. Sometimes right near this sort of stone, you can find white and blue sapphires, rubies, even alexandrites. It's a way of spotting a rich vein.
At work in a nearby stream, Ajit is dreaming of riches.
I dig the earth, and I earn enough for a living without having to bother anyone. Someday we'll come up with a big stone, and then we'll all be well off. That's what gives us the strength to go on.
The miner's eyes all burn with the intense hope of finding that one exceptional stone. Shina has discovered here a group of men who live by their courage and intuition. One needs luck, but even more important, the experience that no book can teach to unearth the stone. Shina studied gemstones before coming to visit the mines of Ratnapura. She's seen a great deal of jewelry and exceptional stones. But what she has come here to find is the origin of those precious stones that Ajit plucks from the earth. The rough stones that will reveal their splendor only when they've been cut and polished.
This one is a ruby.
How big would it be when cut?
I think you get a 4 or a 5 carat stone from that.
I would really like to buy a star sapphire from you. And this one here, this blue sapphire.
These are all valuable stones.
Finding a stone at the bottom of a mine is very hard, and the buyers aren't always aware of the work it entails. This is why I came here. This is what I wanted to see.
A miner's life is very hard, but the days we do find a stone, we're really happy. This job is like searching for something invisible.
I'm very happy. I have no words to explain how my happiness. It's an adventure journey, but I have got a good experience. I'm back to my home with my lovable stones, lovable 2 stones, blue sapphire and star sapphire. My first 2 stones that I bought.
The story of these stones is as old as history itself. Jewelry, but also magic, medicine, and science. Ever since the dawn of time, they have exerted a fascination on all mankind. Jerome's different lives have taken him to the 4 corners of the globe. Scuba diving instructor, sailor, maitre d' on an ocean liner, and now hot air balloonist. He has flown in Egypt, Kenya, Tanzania, Libya, South Africa, Florida, and Burma. And last but not least, he has landed with his balloon here in Sri Lanka to fulfill his passion and at the same time earn his living by sharing it with others.
This is one of the most beautiful spots of Sri Lanka. It's an island in the middle of Lake Kandalama. We're lucky. We often fly over it in the morning. It's a bird sanctuary. There are little islands scattered all around, and this one here is the main island with its unspoiled nature. This is Sri Lanka, the real Sri Lanka, with the mountains all around, the tea plantations, the lakes, the birds, the thick, lush vegetation. We're really in Sri Lanka, and Kandalama is the very heart of Sri Lanka. You can't get any freer than a hot air balloon. The thing about a balloon is that you can't steer it. You just go with the wind, you follow its whims. You're a passenger of the wind, its guest. You adapt according to what the wind decides. You let yourself be carried. So it's true freedom, but freedom where the wind decides.
To glide along without a sound, to let yourself be carried by the slightest breeze. Jerome has found the perfect machine to enjoy the most stunning landscapes.
It's the most basic form of transportation. Apart from the propane, which is a petroleum derivative, all the rest is reed and cloth. It's really very simple. Nothing more than that bubble of hot air above, keeping us aloft.
Alone up in the air, Jerome calmly decides to go up a little higher.
We're getting there, 999 and 1,000 meters. That's it. Pretty cool, huh? There's no noise. Maybe you might hear a few dogs now and then, but it's total plenitude. Calm, absolute calm. 1,080 meters, all right. We'll start coming down now.
For Jerome, this is the fulfillment of a childhood dream. His first flight was with Jules Verne, through the pages of 5 weeks in a balloon. That book was a revelation for him. One day, he would be a balloonist. One century before Jules Verne's novel came out, 2 Frenchmen, the Montgolfier brothers, accomplished a remarkable feat. They invented the first apparatus to overcome the attraction of the Earth's gravity, thus opening the way to exploration from the sky. Jerome is carrying on this French tradition. He's perpetuating the adventuresome spirit of those pioneers of hot air ballooning.
Hello.
You see that little brown patch down there? It's the kind of place where we can usually land. We won't this time because of the wind. It's a question of luck depending on what's down there. Now, the idea is to go down as low as possible and skim the treetops.
Hello! T'as les gamins qui courent vers nous, là. Bye-bye!
The problem is landing, especially in Sri Lanka. He has to aim for the zone between the flooded rice fields and the jungle. No easy task with a vessel that you can hardly steer.
Hang on, guys.
Up! Hello! Ende?
From which country?
Hello, France!
France.
Yes, France!
Each landing is an intense moment and a celebration. The surprise before this unexpected guest quickly gives way to a feeling of wonder.
The guy's gonna pull. There's like two or three, minimum 3 guys there. Pull, and he's gonna deflect like this. And some guys, they're gonna go on here so he doesn't go into the water, okay?
Jerome can always count on help from the villagers. Here in Sri Lanka, the whole community turns out spontaneously to lend a hand. This complicity with a population that knows how to work together is what mainly attracted Jerome when he came here 4 years ago.
Oh, no, coming. Okay, good.
The fishermen have dropped their nets several hundred meters from shore, and now everyone has been hauling on the ropes together for hours to bring the catch up onto the beach.
Ça te met vraiment les pieds sur terre parce que tu te rends compte que...
It really gives you a dose of reality because you realize that these fishermen, they spend 5-6 hours hauling their net in, all for a few kilos of fish. So really, hats off to them. They really have my respect. I don't know the language, so we don't speak much but through gestures and facial expressions. You can really get a feel for the country, for the people, for what they're living, and that's a humbling experience. Here we're sharing a moment, an effort, when we're all in tune with a common goal. And that's what's important, the sharing part.
Once the net is up on the beach, there's a grim silence as everyone sees how meager the day's catch is.
You learn that life isn't all that simple. It's not always easy. Today, there are people in the world who struggle and sweat to get what we get just by pushing a button. Whereas they have to work long hours and they do it in harmony and respect for nature. I can't really find the words to describe it, but it's a profound lesson in life.
When he first came to this country, Jerome had to lay the groundwork. The first thing he did was to spot the best landscapes for flying and the best spots to take off. He has the free use of cricket pitches and schoolyards.
I really love everything about Sri Lanka. I mean, it's not just the people. It's the country in general, the hospitality, everything. It's great weather every day. From November to April, you can fly practically every morning. There's good conditions almost every day. It's ideal for ballooning. It's just awesome.
But to fuel his passion, he has to go into town to stock up on the indispensable tanks of propane gas.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Jerome lives his life according to the rhythm of the sun, for he has to get his balloon aloft before it gets too hot. The difference in temperature between the air outside and inside the balloon is what produces this alchemy. At 5 in the morning, it's already 25 degrees Celsius. In 2 hours, it won't be possible to fly. For Jerome, hot air balloons are like poetry, useless, yet at the same time essential, to elevate one's soul and to contemplate the world.
Qu'on soit tributaire de la météo me plaît aussi.
I like that we depend on the weather. We're in harmony with the elements. We're at the mercy of every little breeze, temperature, the fog, a whole series of things that determine whether you'll be able to fly or not. And you're never sure.
Aujourd'hui, on vit dans un monde où tout est codifié.
Today, we live in a world where everything is codified. There's not really any more space for freedom. Whereas with Sri Lanka, not that it's a place where you can do anything you want, but there's much more space because it's virgin territory. What I'm really after is the nature, contact with the nature, contact with the people. And the balloon will give me that. It's really total freedom. Every morning I do a flight, and after that the day just whizzes by. It's fantastic.
Grandiose, quoi.
Dhammadasi was only 10 years old when he decided to dedicate his life to Buddha by becoming a monk. Here at the temple of Aluvihara, he is seeking to attain nirvana, the ultimate stage of enlightenment. Buddha said, "He who is master of himself is greater than he who is master of the world." By following the teachings and philosophy of Buddha, Dhammadasi has embarked on a spiritual quest that leads to enlightenment, to a comprehension of our reality.
Mind the thorns. Climb up a little higher. Is it a good frond? It's the fresh frond, right? Tie it good and tight. If it slips, it'll fall. Try to lower it nice and slowly, head first. Be careful it doesn't touch the other leaves.
Here at Aluvihara, the Buddhist monks are carrying on a tradition that's over 2,000 years old. It all starts in the heart of the jungle. The frond they've cut is sacred. Dhammadasi carries it to his temple, one of the oldest of Sri Lanka. It dates back to the period when Buddhism first arrived in the country in the 3rd century BC.
We're going to make a traditional prayer book. It's called a Puskala Putte. We start by preparing the palm fronds that'll make up the pages of the book. It's an ancient tradition. It's remained unchanged ever since the early manuscripts. Writing is the monk's work, and it's all done with what the forest here around the temple can give us. It all comes from right here.
To produce his book, Dhammadasi repeats the gestures carried out by so many monks before him. They would inscribe on these leaves the teaching of Buddha, as well as all the learning of the time. Certain of these works are the only existing records of the region's history. Others give a comprehensive view of the knowledge of a bygone age in medicine and astrology.
I've been doing this ever since I was a small child. I stopped for a few years, but I learned it all here. I really like this work. I also know how to write Pali very well. It's an ancient Buddhist language used by the monks. The man who taught me how to hold the leaf in the stylus was a great monk, but he didn't teach me the art of writing. So I figured that by studying the sacred scriptures, I could learn on my own. And that's exactly what I did.
The temple of Nalanda Gedige has remained outside of time, far from the bustling modern world. The building is deeply suffused with spirituality. Dhammadasi likes to be off on his own when he's transcribing the sacred words of Buddha. This is the path he has chosen. It's his contribution to humanity.
The words and philosophy of Buddha were not written down right away. In the beginning, everything was transmitted orally, by word of mouth. Then they began to write on these leaves. From that moment on, the teachings were no longer deformed because they were teaching what was written. I'm doing exactly the same work as the scribes of long ago, and they dedicated their lives to this task. I inherited this tradition, and it gives me great satisfaction.
Charana sampanno sugato loka vidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati sattha deva manusanang buddho bhagavati.
Kandy is the Buddhist city of Sri Lanka. It's home of the Buddha Tooth Relic Temple, a major place of worship and pilgrimage for Buddhists from the world over. Buddhism is the major religion here, and its influence can be felt everywhere. It plays a vital role in the spiritual, cultural, and political life of the country. As in all religions, the faithful make pilgrimages to the holy sites, voyages to the heart of their spirituality. The railroad that once transported Ceylon's tea down to the coast and that contributed to its reputation still rattles along carrying the country's inhabitants. Every Buddhist in Sri Lanka hopes to make the pilgrimage to the summit of Sri Pada, the sacred mountain in the center of the country, at least once in their life. It thrusts up into the sky, a perfect cone, a bridge between humanity and the divine. Sri Pada. Legend has it that Alexander the Great, Marco Polo, and other famous voyagers came here to see the sunrise. The kings of Sri Lanka all made the journey here to bow to its eternal grandeur. Sri Pada is one of the rare places on earth that is venerated by Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians alike. The belief is that Buddha himself left his footprint here. The Hindus, on the other hand, believe that Shiva danced on the mountaintop. As for the Muslims, they call this mountain Adam's Peak. Lastly, for Christians, it was St. Thomas who left his mark here.
Here, we're in the sanctuary of the god Saman, the Sita Gangula. It's an icy mountain stream. We purify ourselves, and then we will do our prayers. We have to purify our body, our thoughts, our heart. That gives us the force to undertake this journey.
The pilgrims wear white. Damadasi ties a coin wrapped in a piece of saffron-colored cloth around their wrist. They will deposit it as an offering when they get to the top of the mountain. Damadasi will accompany this pilgrim couple to the top. They've chosen a night of the full moon, a poya. In Sri Lanka, this is a time dedicated to spirituality. They set out early while it's still dark in order to get to the top for the sunrise. "4,800 steps to the summit. A prolonged effort, which allows one to exhaust the body in order to free the mind and attain enlightenment."
The final goal of all Buddhists is to reach nirvana, the ultimate state of being. With that goal in mind, we pay great attention to what we say. We learn how to dominate the violence that exists within each of us, in our gestures, in our thoughts. Buddhism teaches self-mastery. This is the wish of all Buddhists, and this is the path that will lead us to nirvana.
The tradition is that each pilgrim rings the bell upon arriving at the summit, once for every time they have visited this holy site. At an altitude of more than 2,200 meters, the sound fills the space and fires the faith of believers of all confessions. The manuscript that Damadasi is holding dates back more than 500 years.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punyena metena labami mokkhaṃ.
I've already read this sacred book down below, but this is the first time I'm reading it here on the mountain, and it's a great honor for me. It's an incredible experience. It's thanks to my good karma that I've been blessed with this good fortune. It's the result of my past lives. My entire life is based on the principles of Buddhism. I have no other ambition. I'm content with what I have. I've had the good fortune and strength to be able to teach, to spread the word of Buddha to many of the faithful. That's the goal I've set for myself. I plan to continue studying and deepening my knowledge of this philosophy, and I want to follow this path as far as possible.